Hi everyone, my name is Victoria. I'm currently a student in 372 and my project will be on Python iterators. So what are iterators? Iterators are objects we use to traverse iterables. So some iterables we should be pretty familiar with are lists, tuples, dictionaries, sets, strings, files, etc. And basically what makes all of these iterables is that they can return one datum of themselves at a time. In contrast, iterators are mainly responsible for two things. The first being that they remember their position in the iteration of an iterable, and the second being that they know how to access the next item in an iterable. So just to kind of clarify technically what the difference is, an object is an iterator if it implements the iterator protocol, which includes two methods. So the first being the iter method, which returns an iterator object, and the second being the next method, which gets the next item in the iterable. On the other hand, an object is an iterable if it only has the iter method. So basically, that kind of makes sense that we need to get an iterator for an iterable object, but we can't use next itself on an iterable. So if we try to treat an object as an iterator when it isn't, we get a type error. So the basic iteration process is basically we get the iterator from an iterable using iter. We use the iterator to access each item via next, and we iterate until there are no items remaining. And as soon as no items are remaining, we raise the stop iteration exception. And basically for loops are so convenient because they do this whole process for us. They get the iterator and use next behind the scenes and then deal with the stop iteration exception for us. So this is all pretty helpful to know because it allows us to create iterators for our own classes outside of just the built-in Python ones. And we get a lot more freedom with the itertools module, which contains a bunch of different kinds of methods for different iterators. So I'll be kind of briefly addressing one of the combinatorics ones, just because I've tried to record this a few times and I actually have been running out of time. So I'll just show it briefly. But real quick, these are my sources, and Corey Schaefer gave me the myRange example, which I'll be showing briefly as well. So I just wanted to shout them out, and I will attempt a code demo, which I've never done before outside of this project. So I'll do my best. But basically, we will start with what we know to be an iterable, which is a list. So I'll just do a list from 1 to 5. And as I kind of mentioned before, a list itself is an iterable, but it is not an iterator. So if I try to treat it like an iterator and get the next value in the list, let me go ahead and clear that and then run this. We get this type error, list object is not an iterator. So we won't do that. We know that if we want to get each item, we can easily do so with this for loop for num and nums. And it kind of prints what we expect, 1 through 5. But if we wanted to create this ourselves without using a for loop, and we want to use it, we want to use the iterator directly to kind of simulate what a for loop is doing, we can do the following. So basically, we have to start by getting the iterator object from the list. So this gives us the iterator itself from this iterable. And then we can just use an infinite loop to try to get the next item from the iterator. So if there's an item left to get in the iterable, this will work. We can get it using the iterator and then say we want to print it. But if we are out of numbers to iterate over, we will raise the stop iteration exception ourselves. And we might just break at that point. So if I get rid of this and I run this, we get the same output. So that's basically how it works, kind of behind the scenes. And if we want to look at this example, basically, if we wanted to simulate range which we might use for this. We want to print the numbers from the range 1 to 10. That's how it would work. And if we wanted to create our own range to use, we could basically create an iterator for the iterable. So basically, given a start and end value, we would create an object whose current value starts at start and whose end value starts at end. And basically, to make this an iterator, we just have to have these two methods. So we can define iter by returning self because we're making it an iterator itself. And then we define next in any way that we see fit for our purposes. So basically, we know that if this current value equals or is greater to the end value, then we'll raise the stop iteration exception ourselves, because if we're just counting, this could go on forever. So we need to know, need to clarify exactly when we stop. Otherwise, we can get the current value and then increment the value by 1 and then return it, return the previous value. So basically, this works the same way. If I do this, for I in my range, 1 to 10, and it will produce the same thing. And then kind of similarly, if we just wanted to do it more primitively, oops, and say we did this, it would print as expected and then just raise that stop iteration exception as necessary. Let me check my time. Okay, basically, last thing, I just made a really super simple, like really basic password cracker. This isn't super versatile just because it can only deal with, unique characters. But this is just a really basic example of how you might use the Iteratools module. So Iteratools has an iterator method called permutations, and this is just giving me all the possible permutations of this list for this many chosen objects. So I would basically just say if a password could be 4 to 6 characters long, I could try all the combinations and check if the given password's in it.